So we have seen the introduction of SoapUI Tool with different web services. Like we have taken one sample web service from this site servicerepository.com, and we have checked the weather services for single. Yeah. So can you hear me?
Yeah. You remember we talked about making a preparing the XML. You want to teach that one now?
Oh, you want to see that?
Yeah, how to prepare the XML.
How to prepare an XML?
Huh?
How to prepare an XML?
Yeah.
How to prepare an XML from Visual or from the scratch?
I don't know what is the scenario and what they will ask. But I have not worked in SoapUI. I know what is the scenario.
Yeah, so okay, that's a different thing. XML testing is different, but the web services testing, in web service testing, they will give you the WSDL. So out of WSDL, I showed you how to create an XML automatically. So this is this WSDL will be given to you, right? So what you will do, you will open the SoapUI. I know how to prepare an XML from the scratch. That is not the scenario here. The scenario for the web service testing is not to prepare an XML from the scratch. You simply create a project, right? New SOAP project, and here you provide the WSDL. Simply whatever WSDL is given to you, you take that WSDL and copy it here. Let's say sample.
And the tool will do the XML.
Exactly. So you don't have to prepare an XML. That's what I'm saying. Okay. So sample.
No. That you were saying something. No, like there was a separate XML.
That is second procedure. I'll tell you. This is the first procedure. So you created a sample project, right? So automatically SOAP request is created. This is basically SOAP request. This is the XML, SOAP XML. So you don't need to create this one. So all you need to do is replace this question mark by your input data. That's payload. So that is the one thing. Okay. Second procedure is create a directly import the project. So you will be given the project.
Yeah, that's what you showed. Yeah.
So right. So what you will do is simply you will be given projects like this in terms of XMLs. XML will be given to you directly. So all you have to do is just import it. Now I am importing. Okay, it is taking time to import. What is it sound?
No.
Okay. Okay, let it take some time.
What is it?
No, it's not my sound is not coming from my side. This thing is stuck. Take some time. Alright. So here you see the same web service I have imported twice. So then again it renamed this weather tool, and this automatically you will get. So it may not be that one. Make this one. Weather soap. Yeah. See the same thing. So basically one way is to take the WSDL and create SOAP message out of it, and second way is to take the project and create automatically the project. The advantage of taking project is it will have payloads, or it might not have payloads. So in which case you have to enter the payload. So So here ask them for the sample SOAP request files. Okay, or so first of all, the web service tester will ask integration team for endpoints or WSDLs of all web services and the integration test documents. Or tester can also ask for the SOAP projects. Those are called SOAP projects. So SOAP projects can be imported into SoapUI Tool. So SOAP projects is a general term. So this will contain all the request XMLs with or without payloads. So both ways you can do, you know. However, if you are
payloads is nothing but the data, no?
Data, yeah, input data. So payloads means input data. In web services terminology, they will.
Why will it have the data? Data tester will only input, no?
Okay, that's what. So in case they have already unit tested, they will have their own data. In which case you have to erase their data and you put your own test data, because their data might not work for you, right? Because developer always does their own unit testing. So if they have data, if you run it and see if it is not working in your test environment, then you will again input with your own data. If it is works fine, it is a simply migration of the development. Normally what developers will do, developers simply just create a copy of their own environment and call it as test environment. So in which case the data also same thing. So if they create an environment from the scratch, like a staging environment, they will create everything fresh. So in which case the data simply doesn't work from one environment to another. So you have to create your own data for that. So how do you create your own data? By going through your manual application process. For example, you enter your first name, last name in the create an application, create a account in your application under test AUT, and then come back here, use the same input in your web services. So that might work. So in which case, so some web services take new data. For example, there is a web service called register a person. So in which case it takes the data. So whatever data you enter according to the business rules, then it will take and create an account in the database, and then just response would be successfully created account. So that comment will be it will just simply have comment column, comment element. So it completely depends how the web service was created, what is the business logic behind them, and so basically for that knowing those rules and everything, so you need to refer to the integration design document. So basically this will be prepared by the integration development team, and integration testing team will use this for this testing. Okay, so any questions in the basic SoapUI testing with WSDL and with Soap project?
No, Sangam.
No, right? Okay, how about you, Prachi?
Till now, no questions.
Till now, no question. Yeah, till now it's a fairly simple thing. We have seen both one from WSDL, one from XML directly. So that is fairly simple, that anybody can do in my point of view. So all you have to concentrate on is data driven testing that we are going to see right now. So what is it? By definition, data driven testing means you need to run the same test case over multiple sets of data. So this is only possible if you have kind of automated tool such as SoapUI Pro or SoapUI NG. NG means next generation, or right now it is called ReadyAPI, which is API means, what is the API?
Application programming interface.
Yeah, application programming interface, which is a collection of different they can say they will put different criteria together. For in this case, ReadyAPI is a combination of SoapUI NG, SoapUI V service or something, then load UI. So all this are put together. So basically that is they are calling it as ReadyAPI. So in general terminology, so different APIs will be provided by different software companies, right? For example, give me an example of API, another example, not SoapUI. For example, we can take Apache. Apache is a good example, right? It provides lot of APIs. So what is the API? What is the use of API? You can readily use it. Basically, instead of starting the coding from the scratch, they can use it. So instead of building it, so that is a basic advantage of the API. So anyway, so that's not our concern. So all we have to worry about is how do we use this API for our data-driven testing. So what I did was I just installed the ReadyAPI on that day, and today I have applied the license. I'll show you how to apply the license. Have you downloaded this ReadyAPI?
I've got the license also. I downloaded and got license also.
Got licenses. Okay, so they will normally send this zip file to your email. So all you have to do is just upload this zip file. Somo, did you do this too? ReadyAPI?
No, I told you that my computer is not working.
Okay.
And the office laptop I'm not able to install.
Okay. So I'll just mention the steps so that when you get to your laptop, you can perform these operations. So all you have to do is
How common is this SoapUI Pro in the industry? Is it common?
I would say it's pretty common nowadays because everybody uses SoapUI Tool for soap testing, and they might need SoapUI Pro sooner or later because the bigger the application grows, the number of web services will grow too, and the number of web services grow, and they will ask the tester to test the same web service with different sets of data, multiple sets of data. So if you need to test one's web service with 2 or 3 sets of data, you can do the cloning. Cloning is one, right? How do you do the cloning? Simply copy this request and just right click on it, cloning. So this is the best way to, if you just running with the 2 or 3 sets of data. But if you need to run the same web service with like 10-15 sets of data, and likewise you have to do for 100 web services, so it will become very tedious. So in which case this tool will come handy in data driving test. So okay, let me go ahead and mention. So you go to this.
You work in SoapUI Pro in your last project?
Yeah, I worked in almost every project because I am into multiple technologies. Normally what they will do is, if you are smart tester, they'll put you in every field, not just manual testing. Manual testing is not right now. I'm not contradicting manual testers, but whoever joins in the beginning of the project, right? So they will stick to manual because they will go through the business requirements, functional requirements, and they will start. Obviously, in the beginning, you have to do manual testing. So then, later stages, they will hire the automation testers, right? So they won't keep the automation testers in the manual testing. They will just ask them to go through these test cases just for the getting knowledge. Then they will put them in different like SoapUI. Basically, they might not hire web service testers separately. They will utilize the existing resources. So that's why, if some person is good at multiple technologies like web service testing, automation testing, performance testing, they will hire them. So basically, what is the point of hiring one person with multiple? Because saving the billing and everything, right? So single person will do everything. So that's what they are looking for, and they will put in every aspect of the project, every aspect of the software testing lifecycle, one web service testing, and there are different. Even I did like 834 testing for healthcare. You may not have idea, and what is that? The testing for the disabled people, like some web page must provide the tools for catering to the disabled, to physically visually handicapped, they can't see, and some people cannot hear. So for them, so how to test the web, majorly the government websites, .gov websites will have the features for these visually handicapped and hearing impaired people. So so they will provide some features. For example, here as and when you hover over some text, it will like speak. It will like so, and some visually.
Like for accessibility
Accessibility testing. Yeah, that is what I was looking for. Accessibility
And
testing.
Firebug, you're using Firebug for that, right? Firebug or something?
Firebug and some Jazz products are there. So Jazz is the main tool for that one. IBM provides a Jazz tool. So Jazz tool is normally used for the accessibility testing. Firebug is normally used for this Selenium automation testing. Firebug is normally for fetching the developer tools like properties of objects and everything. That is what it is good at.
No, actually, in my project, they wanted to start accessibility testing, and for that, they initiated, they asked us to download Firebug and something like that, and then somehow they didn't do it. They delayed it all. So
Yeah, Firebug is used for, it is initially used for, I guess. Then after fetching the properties of, that is mainly to see every link has all tooltip and everything. So because if you hover over some link, it should show the all tooltip. So best way is to do it from the Firebug. So Firebug normally fetches all these developer tools. Let me show it to you. Since we have already seen, that's fine. But let me show it to you. So for example, in this case, if you just press Ctrl Shift I, automatically it will invoke this. So similarly, there is a Firebug here. So Firebug normally it's an advanced version of the developer tools. So this one. So when you click on this, hover over some link, it shows the properties of this particular link or any object, properties of this object. So basically you can see at object level if each object is compatible for the these kind of people. For example, they have accessibility features, or are they in compliance with this WW consortium standards, W3C, that's what you call, right? World Wide Web Consortium. So that provides some standards. For example, every link should have tooltip and blah blah blah. So these are for the general users again, for for other kinds of physically and visually impaired people. So the website should have high brightness, and it should have voiceover and blah blah blah. So if you are completely into accessibility testing, normally I would suggest there are good documentation. If you just Google what is the criteria for testing accessibility features in a website, so that will provide. But normally they won't ask you. They will hire specialized testers for the accessibility, but they already have existing testers who have expertise in accessibility testing. They will utilize. So that is about accessibility testing. Nothing to we are not talking about accessibility testing, right? So let's go to data driven testing directly. So once you go to this, download this. So I'm just mentioning these steps for the later reference purpose, so that SOMA and other can do later. So significance, then tools. First, download ReadyAPI from this site. Second one, after downloading, it will ask you register yourself, then check your email for the license, and then apply the license to ReadyAPI. So that's it. This normally provides a license for 14 days free. So you are here. So simply it will be the features are similar to the SoapUI what we have used so far. So only the difference will be it will have extra features inside. So simply create new SOAP project just the way we did before, and provide the initial visual, or if you have the XML, do the same import. So either way it will work fine. So simply I'm going to fetch this. Which one we can use right now? We can go for the weather services because it's working fine. So for practice purpose you can use anything. So like I said, if if you are in your application in your real-time project, you have to use those projects only. So let me go ahead and use this. So let's call it weather service data driven. So here I am not creating a test suite. I'll show you how to create manually, but if you want it to be created automatically, you can check this. So let's see. So it's going to download those services. Okay, so we are already we have used this. So whatever you have tested using the SoapUI, because they have integration with ReadyAPI, automatically they will be imported here. So that's why you are seeing all these services that we have already tested in SoapUI here. So however we haven't used this, remember, so only we have downloaded is this one, weather data driven. So again you have these. So right now we are going to use this one, this particular web service, SOAP request. Okay, so first let me go to my, so this is the hierarchy we are looking for. We have to create this hierarchy for actually creating the data driven test. So any questions, Soma?
What is this hierarchy about?
I'll explain. Okay. So in this is the SOAP request, right? This is the SOAP request, and you have to add this SOAP request to that as a test set, and this test step will contain other criteria. I will explain about this. So all these test steps will be included in the test case, as just like in the manual testing, it's the same thing. And all these, if you have multiple test cases, so these test cases will be added to the test suite. So basically test suite is the topmost element. So let's use this. So this is the navigation. So project is the topmost because project is always on the top, and then it will contain test suite, then it will contain test case, then test steps. Test steps will contain data source, SOAP request, property transfer, data sync, and data source loop. Okay. So normally data source means where you are fetching the data from. Most likely it is a Excel spreadsheet or flat file or CSV file. So this is basically input. That is what we call as data source. Then SOAP request already you have, and then property transfer. Okay, I'll talk about this later. So I'll come to data sync. So data sync is another file, output file, where you want to dump all the output data. For example, the input has SSN, or let's say input has zip code, and output has data, weather data for that particular city. That is output. So the input, this particular Excel sheet will have zip codes, multiple zip codes, 100 zip codes, which you are inputting into SOAP request. So where once this SOAP request is run, it provides all the output data. So that output data for one such service we will see in the right side here. For one set of data, this is the request and the response will be displayed right here on the right side. But for 100 sets of data, you cannot display here. So that is where the data sync comes into picture. So all this output data, output responses will be dumped in terms of XML or in place of in the CSV file, comma separated value file or flat file. So here this acts as the output data. Then we can go to this file and analyze and provide the results if we can verify the results and provide test fail or test pass and provide those test results into test summary report. So okay, property transfer normally defined for where to take the input from and where to put the output to. So that's where you define the logic for the property transfer. So this is, since this is a actually this has to be shown in the tool, I'll show it to you. So but property transfer basically to take the data from data source, which element goes to which part of the SOAP request, that will be defined, and this data, output data, goes to which column of the Excel spreadsheet. So that will be defined in the property transfer. Then data source loop finally, because this is like for loop, you know. So one set of data will be sent to data SOAP request, then it will provide one set of result that will be going to the data sync. Then you have to drive it to the second one. So that will be defined in this data source loop. So this makes sure that it will cover all the sets of data. For example, the data source has 100 sets of data. So one by one it has to cycle, looping. So that's where the data source loop comes into picture. Okay, so let me to the next page. Okay, so this is my last project's WSDL. So this, you can take any WSDL and create a project, SoapUI project. Just now we did. So we created in the ReadyAPI with a data driven test, and then what you do is right click on the SOAP request, add to test case. When you create WSDL, it automatically provides a checkbox, create a test suite. If you check this, you don't have to do this. But if you haven't done this, we have to add. This is a test step. Request XML is kind of a test step. So you have to add the test step to test case. That's what you do in the writing test cases, right? So same thing over here, add to test case. Then let's call it then this test case will be automatically added to test suite. So 2 steps in one shot. So just click on OK and click on OK again and click on OK. Don't worry about this. These are go with the default values. Okay. So if we look at the hierarchy, this is our SOAP request. It automatically appended request 1 because it's like sensed that there might be multiple requests. You can create multiple requests by cloning here again. So however, if you are sticking with the same, that's not the right way, because if you are cloning, you wouldn't use data driven, because since you are using data driven, automatically this case will be driven over the data. Okay, so this request is added to test case and test case is added to test suite. So this looks like a nice hierarchy, and you can add multiple test steps over here. So that is the reason this hierarchy is very important, especially in the data driven testing. Okay, so next what you will do, so here when you add the test step to test case, automatically that test case is added to test suite. So you don't have to create test suite again. So right click on the SOAP request and create a test case, and it will be added to test suite automatically. So that's adding it to the test case. And then add a data source. So let us see how to add a data source. We have already seen, right? So data source is required for fetching the data from. The data source is like kind of acts as way to pull the data from input data. So input data like data pool you can call it. So all you have to do is right click on this test case, right click on the test case and create a data. It will show all the options, and just choose the option create a data source for the test case. So click on the right test case, not the test suite, not the request. Click on the test case. There will be option called add step. Test case will contain test steps, right? So we are going to add one of the test steps, which is data source. Create data source, give it a nice name. So I will suggest go with the default. So because data source is what your if you keep the data source name, you won't get confused. So it says create a data driven loop based on this data source and configure test steps automatically. So click yes. Alright, sample equal. Okay, basically you can provide sample values here also, but we want to see, we will first see this one, and we will see the data fetching from Excel spreadsheet later. So both can be seen. Okay, then data source is added. Then in the hierarchy we have to add property transfer. So before adding property transfer, you can add data sync, but it makes more sense if you go step by step. So the next step should be property transfer. So simply right click on the test step and add property transfer. But after adding, you have to do a lot of things. We have to define it. So but we are going to just add right now. So test case, add step, property transfer. Okay. So after property transfer, California. Hold on, just a second. Hello. 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 Who is this? Hello. Yeah. Hello. Okay. That I got some calls. So I don't know who is it. Banjishna, I think. Okay. So then we add the data sync, right? Okay. Let me show it to you. So just right click on the test case, not the test suite. Add step and select the data sync. So give it the same name, unless you want to give another name. So after data sync, we have one more step, data source loop. This is the final step you need to add. So same thing, right click on the test step and add data source loop. Okay, it should be not test step, it should test case, typo. I will correct it when I share these notes. So okay, this is so ready. Okay, just add data source loop, this one. Okay, so the hierarchy is added right now. Okay, so far we have created the hierarchy, but we haven't defined it. So right now we are going to define it. Okay, so we are starting from the data source again. So first we have created data source, and this is already created, the SOAP request. Then data source loop, property transfer, data sync. Data source loop is created double time, so just delete it. So data source request, data source loop, property transfer, data sync. Okay, perfect. But they are in the different, not in the proper order. So we will put them in order. But since we have created, that's fine. We will define them and put them in order. So you can just drag and drop in the nice order. Okay, so we will first drag and drop them in the order. So the order would be this. This order. So data source is first, then SOAP request, then property transfer should come. So I'll just drag this and drop it over here, so that it should be in the same order, otherwise it wouldn't work. Logical order. So like I said, I'll explain the logical order again. Then data sync. So data sync comes here, and data source loop is the last one. So just try to save it so that your saves you won't lose the changes you made. Okay. So like I said, data source, it will take the data from and put it into the SOAP request, and the property transfer will make sure that which part of the data goes to which field in the XML, and then finally it will run over that data and provide the response, and that response details will be put into this file data sync, and it will be according to the property transfer again, where to put what, and then finally that is over for the one set of data. The execution is done. Then it has to repeat the same thing for the second set of data, so that will be taken by the data source loop. So again it will take it to the data source, second row, same thing like data driven automation testing, and it will be run for this set of data, and data results will be stored in this one, and comes here, goes to third set of data. So until all the rows are executed successfully, it will be successfully or doesn't matter, it will simply run, and finally you have to compare manually or putting assertions, you have to compare and provide the results. So this is the hierarchy. So first let us go to data source. Okay, so here we have the options. Data source means it's a source file where what kind of file you want to use. So basically we can use a flat file or a CSV file or an Excel spreadsheet, right? Okay. Okay, so here before jumping into the file, this ReadyAPI are already provided me whether you want to input your data here. So this is good for like 5 sets of data. Again, for 100 sets of data this is not good. So let us try to use this first and we'll jump to that one. Okay, tell me some zip codes. 27707. Second one is let me enter 19909. Tell me another zip code.
08820.
Tell me another zip code.
11011 is right.
11011. And another, what is 2770. Okay, let me use 19304. Okay, if the zip codes, one of the zip codes is invalid, we will show the invalid response. So doesn't matter whether you put valid or invalid. All we are seeing is whether we are able to run this over the 5 sets of data. Save your projects. Okay, so here we are not going to the file. I will show you the file later, because this ReadyAPI also provides me this extra feature. So then we will go to the property transfer. So we'll come back to this later. So double click on the SOAP request, and you have to basically parameterize. So let us see how do you parameterize, because this particular one has still question, or if it already saved with the input value or payload, it will have a sample value. So this is like one payload, but we have to replace this with the payloads from either spreadsheet or data source, whatever. So basically data source, we will call it a data source from now onwards. So simply right click on it, get data, and where you want to get data from. So you want to get data from data source. That's the main intention, right? So data source, where you want to get data in the data source, property called zip code. So just click on select. So there you go, it comes here. So all you have to replace with this particular string, $, data source, hash, the column name. Zip code is a column name. So that is the main important. So this is basically initially somebody Somo asked the question, right? In SoapUI tool, it will have only XML field. So you have to basically find the XML field, and that which is sometimes it's not easy. You have to find out the question mark. Here you will see the text box, so that you can fill it with the details. So you have the good old XML tool. So all it did was just replace that hard-coded value with this parameterized string. So which looks like this, $, data source, hash sign. Only thing that changes is this particular thing. So based on the column you are playing with, that will be driven over here. So this is the string which acts as a parameterized string. Okay, so that part is done. Now we'll go to the second part. So same thing, double click on SOAP request, add the following string to the, so you can add it manually also. Don't worry about this. These are the XSD elements, because I told you, right, the XMLs are created out of XSDs, and so it just basically mentioning which XSD is coming. XSD element, which element of the XSD this particular element of the SOAP message is made of. So that's what it is told, and this is where you enter the whole data. So instead of entering the hard-coded value, I am entering the parameterized string, which basically says $, data source name, hash sign. So my column here is a property name, so which is generalized name. Okay. Or you can also do something like this. Do as follows to get a string. This is the whole data source name. So instead of going with the default name data source, I provide, you can change, if you provide the data source name like this, you have to provide that data source name. So always remember, so the data source name you are given must be preceded by the $, and bracket, then hash mark and the column name. So this is the syntax. So then automatically that will replace the particular hard-coded value with the string. So then, so far we have seen we have defined the data source with one first step, like you can say first process, second process, third process, I'll tell you later, with different inputs of data. So right now we have taken input data from right inside this. This is called a data table. In QTP, like it provides the data table, you can enter the data right there. So that's what we did, and we have defined this SOAP request. Basically the definition is nothing but you have to replace all the data source elements here, which are inputted with hard-coded values. You have to basically parameterize them. For example, if your SOAP request contains 10 elements, so you have to repeat the same procedure for all those 10 elements. Right, so we'll go to the property transfer. Okay, so before going to property transfer, we must define data sinks. That is the unless and until we define both data source and data sink, we cannot define property transfer. So even though in the order the property transfer comes before data sink, but you have to define data sink before defining property transfer. So let's come to data sink right now. So what you have to do here, okay, so here you have to select the data sink file type. So same thing, like your data source can be a file type, flat file, Excel file, or CSV file. Here also you can dump all the results to flat file or Excel file, CSV file. So all you have to do is browse, provide some folder in your local machine and browse the file path and give the file path, and put that columns where to put where. For For example, if you I'll show in the Excel, this has multiple responses. Responses have multiple elements, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 blah blah blah, right? So basically based on the response number of elements in the response, that means you should have run this at least once before creating data driven test to know how many elements are there in the response. If this response has 10 elements, then you have to create 10 columns in the Excel spreadsheet, so that each particular city, this one, the date, the weather, all will go to appropriate columns. If you only create 9 columns, then what will happen? You are skipping. You don't have to dump all this data in the Excel, right? If for example the date is not required, you can skip the date. So whatever you want to dump in the Excel spreadsheet, you have to create the columns for those columns at least. So that's what it is taking care here, and you have to give it some name, shortcut or long form. Add these values used for the proper transfer, and data sync will be printed to the output file. So basically you have to do use your techniques over here. Here it provides unchecked trim values. It provides a checkbox. If you check that checkbox, it will, for example, if your output contains more than 9 digits or 10 digits, it will trim it to 8 digits. So that means you are losing some data. So you make sure that you do not check this trim checkbox. Uncheck. If it is already checked, just make sure you uncheck it. And also unquoted values. So you do not quote the values, because what will happen if you quote the values is the output will contain codes. So every value will be within quotes. Basically you don't want to do this. For example, here the NC is the value. So this will be in your Excel spreadsheet, it will look like this within quotes. So that will provide problem for later analysis purpose. So I suggest do not quote the values. So here, do not check, simply do not check the checkbox, else data source values will be truncated and put in a quotes in the output. So that will look either cumbersome or you will lose the data. Okay, so first let us do this data sync. So come to data sync. Here it will provide, so what type of file you want to select, Excel file or data connection, Groovy, JDBC, property, subgroup. So mostly we will use Excel or file. So 99% Excel is preferred because Excel is easy to play around with. So use the Excel. So automatically it shows what Excel. You have to show the file path, output path, worksheet. Every Excel spreadsheet have worksheets, and what is the column number you want to start from also you can specify. So to do this, first of all you should have created the Excel file in some location. So let us create that. So let me put this for creating the data, and simply I'll create Excel spreadsheet. So here I will suggest go for the XLS rather than XLSX. So give it some name, data sync here. Okay, give it some name, data sync, so that you remember. You can give any name. So by default I think this is of extension XLSX. Normally XLSX is not recommended, but let us see. So first we'll see if ReadyAPI is compatible, because ReadyAPI is a new tool, right? They combine everything. So if ReadyAPI is not compatible with XLSX, we will save it as XLS later. So I think this is of extension XLSX, so do not worry. It's not up. Let's cancel it. Okay. So here you can, normally the convention is to use the first row as header, right? So you can use that, or if you want to just start dumping data, that's also fine. So let me put nice Okay, let us start with state. And what do you want to also put in? City. You can choose whatever you want. You don't have to put everything, right? City. And these names do not have to match. You can put anything, ST, city or something. City. Then I'll go for, I don't want this weather station city. All I want is the weather. Daytime high. Okay, let me use this. Just high temperature in daytime. And description. Okay, so if you want, you can put everything. That's up to you. And okay, so here there are multiple descriptions, right? Description. So just be careful. Okay, for the timing we'll stick to this. Let us see. Description is multiple, so I'll tell you how to deal with multiple descriptions, because tool will get confused. Just like it is called object recognition problem. If two objects have same property in same page, tool will get confused, right? So similarly, you have description over here and you have description over here. So tool will think which description you want, you know. So you have to basically distinguish between different elements of the same name. So we'll see that later. So let me use one description. Okay, so all you have to do is simply this one, and you have to start dumping the data from A2, right? This is the A2, not A1. A1 is reserved for the header. Okay, just save it. Always it's suggested to close it. Okay, so I told you, right, it is created with XLSX extension. So we will see. If it is not comfortable, we will change to XLS. Save it, close it. Okay, then just make it A2. Okay, so just find this video. Michael. So then output file will be the same path. So what is worksheet? Worksheet is what sheet you want to dump. So basically stick with the default sheet form. So okay, so whatever sheet is open, it will dump the data. So you want to get. Alright, so data sync is defined. Then it's not defined completely. Hold on. So basically we forgot to put where to put what column, right? So that means that, so it has this state NC, so it doesn't know this. I want this state value NC to be put over here. So we basically have to provide this connection, right? So So here there is a plus sign, right? Click on plus sign and give it name state. So we enter the property names. First we select the data sync file, type Excel, browse the file for the data sync. We have already done that. Enter the property names. We are going to do that. For example, your property names can be like short forms or long forms. These values are used for the property transfer, and data sync will be printed to the output file. Then uncheck the stream blah blah blah. So we have already done that. We haven't done that, right? Okay, let us see. Data sync, it normally should provide those settings over here, but okay, it is not providing. Let's see. Okay, so this is basically part of file. So it's a flat file. Let us start file instead of starting it. So simply what I'm going to do is, this flat file is mostly convenient because even if you create flat file, this is majorly comma separated, so you can call it CSV file. You can convert it to Excel spreadsheet easily. So basically this is the generalized version. So you can convert it to Excel spreadsheet, you can convert it to normal flat. So however, all the columns, all the row values will be separated by commas. Okay, so let us use this one instead of Excel. So let me create. So what kind of file you want to create here? Simply a flat file. So let's call this data sync. So this is of extension txt, so you don't have to worry about the compatibility. So all you can provide the header, or you just start with right where the cursor is from. That's you can do. You can provide the headers later too. So just create it blank file and select this file. Okay, so let's go with the method first. Separator, you can provide comma, or you can provide tab, you can provide hyphen or whatever, but mostly comma is it's recommended way of dealing with a flat file or a CSV file. So quote values, I always make sure that you uncheck it, and trim values also same thing, uncheck it. Then let us see what else. Append to the existing file. Okay, this means that if you have multiple sets of data in the response, so you run this request with the zip code, the response has been recorded like this, right? Then second set will be run for different zip code. That means you will get a different second set. So I am telling the tool to take the first value and dump it over here, and for the second set of values you just append to this by taking a new line character. So the first set of values will go here, comma blah blah blah, comma blah blah blah, then it will append simply here. So this is the nice format. So don't worry about this flat file. You can convert it to Excel spreadsheet easily. I'll show it to you how later. So just make sure that this is totally empty, or if it is not empty, sometimes it will erase the existing contents and put the new values. So that's possible. Okay. So then we have already done this. So then double click on the property. Now you are coming back to the property transfer. So what we have done so far, we have just defined the data sync. Have you defined the data sync completely? Not yet, right? We have to still provide these column values. Okay, so not yet. So here you simply provide whatever you want from the response. So from the response, what do you want?
Sangam, what is it? Sangam, what is the encoding?
Encoding here. So okay, so this is like the UFT8 encoding and all those, right? UFT8 characters. So that means that in a file You can use any language, Telugu, Bengali, Tamil, all those are part of UFT8. That's kind of encoding. So likewise, you have encoding for these web services files also, data from the XML, SOAP request and SOAP response. So I will suggest go with the default encoding. Do not change it. Do not ever change it. If you want to know more details on this particular encoding, simply Google it. You will find details. So like encoding, general definition is, if for example, if you want to deal with these UFT8 characters in your request, like what I mean to say is, for example, if your input is capable of taking Telugu, Bengali characters, right? So then the particular encoding should be appropriately set for the UFT8 or something. So this particular, that is just an example. So this particular encoding is default encoding, which is recommended for this particular data driven testing or any kind of web service testing. So do not change this type of encoding. That is a basic definition. If you want to know more details on this encoding, just Google it. So that's not required. So don't worry. You don't have to know about this encoding and everything. Just go with this default value. All right. Okay.
And what is the trim value now?
I just told you. What is the trim value?
Trim.
Right. I told you. What is the trim?
I did not get it. Can you tell me one more time?
Okay, Prachi, what is the trim value? I explained it.
Trim value is the value will get trimmed. Some characters will get trimmed automatically.
Right. Okay, so that means that if you want to put this value in a data sync, right? This is the lengthy number, right? So if you check that trim value checkbox, you won't get the whole value. It will truncate till here. You will only see this value. For example,
Okay.
you don't want to do this, right? You want to get whole value. So that's why I recommend you to do not check this. If it is already checked, uncheck this. Similarly, quote values. So what is the quote values means? Instead of providing this value, it will simply put it in the quotes like this. I'll show you in the data sync. We will see all these negative testing results. I'll show you everything. So quote values means you will see everything in the quotes like this. The problem with this, you cannot, you have to get rid of these quotes later. That will be cumbersome. So obviously you don't want to put quote unless it is very much required. But 99% you don't need it. So just make sure. I have mentioned everything in the document. I will share, when I share, I will mention everything in the document. So here I have already mentioned. I'm going down. Okay, here unchecked trim and unquoted values. Unchecked trim and unchecked quoted values. I just mentioned is as a bullet point. Else data source values will be truncated and put in a quotes in the output. So simply, so you have to follow this. Simply I have documented everything. All I'm doing is right now explaining. I know everything, just explaining for you. If you get any doubt, immediately ask me. I'll be explaining. Don't worry, even after you practice you can ask me. The encoding part is just go with the default. Don't worry about the encoding. Do not even touch it. Do not even change it. That's what. If you don't know it, just do not. So go with the default. That's better. So this 50% of definition defining data sync is over. All you have to tell now right now is what value should go where. That you have defined. For example, state. This value should go where. So for that you simply add these values. City. Let's call it city. You can say instead of city you can just put C if you want, shortcut. And next one, state. Okay, start with state. Let's call state. Add city. And what do you want to put? What else do you want to put? What else you want to put from here? Let's put daytime high, this one. So let's call daytime. So that part is done. So here I had like 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 some 15 elements from the response to put to data sync. So that's why I had to create all these. So you can put some or all of them, so it doesn't matter. And when it runs, it will dump the last set of values here, so you don't have to put values here. So just leave the values column, do not fill the values column will be done by filled by the tool, so leave it empty. So then after the data sync, we will go to the property transfer. Like I told you, first you have to define data source, then you have to define SOAP request, just parameterize this, nothing else. Then jump to data sync, then come back to property transfer. Now we will coming back to property transfer. So just save it. This procedure, you just listen to me right now and understand it. Don't have to remember any steps because I have documented everything here, right? Just only difference is your visuals will be changing according to your project, otherwise steps will remain the same. So the procedure logically, even if you just remember it and just forget about it later, you can always apply it to your own projects. If you remember the logical part of it, not the exact procedural steps, So, but if you forget any steps later, you know what to do. Just refer to the steps document. I will provide every details in this notes here. Do you want me to put these details in here with respect to this project? I'll put it later. Okay, so data sync.
So Sangam, can't you share this PPT with us? If you want, you can delete that visual if it's like confidential.
Which one you're saying, Arjun?
The PPT which you're showing, you can share it with us because it has that images also.
Yeah. I will share that one also. Yeah. This one, right? Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
This one I will share. No, what I was asking is, do you want me to put these steps according to the weather project we are doing right now, or do you just need this one? Because this has all the steps. Only thing is visuals and the XMLs, these elements are different, so you have to basically apply to. So I'll share this one also. I'll just remove some important data. Yeah, I'll remove this first page because it shows the company name and everything. This I had made for a presentation. They asked me to present how do you do the data, because this was a crucial part of the project, the data driven testing for the web services. So they asked me to do presentation before you do it, so I had to get it approved, and they said okay, go ahead and do it. Then I went ahead. So the state people wanted basically the about this IV and V, independent verification and validation, which normally hired by state. They will normally verify if QA process is going as per the standards or not. So they will verify everything before giving a go ahead. Okay, go ahead. So they have to present everything, so in step by step format. Then they will say this is workable, then they will say okay, go ahead and do it. Then we'll execute it and provide the results.
But sometimes if we don't have pro version, then is there any workaround to do this same thing?
No, they purchase the pro license for us. We haven't used the trial version. They purchase the license. State purchase the license.
No, but many of the times the client don't purchase this pro version. They ask us to they provide us the installable for SoapUI and that trial version, and they ask.
Yeah. So okay, I'll tell you another technique. Don't tell anyone. No, this is everybody knows, but I'm just telling you. So you install this ReadyAPI. Right now it is ReadyAPI. It's not SoapUI Pro, even though you still use some term. The download ReadyAPI, even in SoapUI.org it shows ReadyAPI. Smart Bear site, it shows a ReadyAPI. So when you download it, it will ask you to register with some email, right? So you register with email, and it will send you the license to your email as an attachment. So then you apply the license. somewhere here. Then it comes for the 14 days. After 14 days it goes. Then what you do, you uninstall it, but you cannot use the same license again. So all you have to do is you have to re-register with a different email. Then you will get 14 more days. So likewise, if you do not have the license, that's what you can do.
But this we can do in the company also.
Yeah, that's what we did initially, until they purchase the license. You don't have a choice. 14 days. Basically, you end up creating like 10-20 emails, free emails. Basically, that's what you have to do. But if your company,
the company instructed you to that, or
no, don't tell anyone.
no? I know, but what like how did they know like what you're doing and using
No,
the
okay.
tool?
So initially you have to like figure out some things, right? So they will ask you to whether this is workable. Since it took so many days for figuring out this data-driven testing, then basically you have to do it on your own, on trial versions, right? So once you present this, then if they are confident enough that you can do it, then they will go ahead and purchase the license. Once you say okay, everything's figured out, you can do it like this 100% workable, then purchase the license. That's after that. But before that, you have to figure out, because you cannot purchase the license on your own, right? Because you are not a company. So if you are like practicing, learning purpose or something, you can always try two, 3 versions. After 14 days, if you still want it, you can re-register and get one more 14 days license for 14 more days. Then you can practice for 14 more days. So, but company, I don't.
You mean to say that we cannot do data-driven testing if we don't have pro version? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I told
Can't
you.
do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
on this SoapUI you cannot do it. That is why you can do it. See, but it will simply say, if you you can create the steps and everything. But when you want to execute it, it will simply say these features are disabled. You cannot do it by pro version. So obviously you have to, even though you create it here, you cannot run it. You can try it. I am not saying you don't try it. You try it, but it won't simply work. So you have to come back.
Because I worked with two major companies, two major clients, and they both didn't provide us the pro version. They asked us to install the installable, and that was the trial version. So maybe in other companies also they would be not providing us pro license. So then what we'll do? That's what. And we cannot go and tell them see, we can only do data-driven testing only if we have a pro license.
Yeah.
Is that
Pro license is not. That's what I was telling you, right? If company, it depends on the company. If your company is ready to purchase a license, you are good. You don't have to create register yourself. But still, you can do. What you can do is every 14 days you have to buy this trial version, download the license. So if that is good with you, yeah, you can do it. It's still doable. All you have to do is register the emails. You will lose nothing. So if you have license, you continuously use it without worrying about creating, registering yourself and fetching the license and applying license. You won't lose the data. So for example, you tried this ReadyAPI for 14 days, right? Then on the 15th day it said your license expired and you cannot use the tool, right? Then what happens? You will wait one day. Okay, next day you again register and you will get 14 more days. Meanwhile, you have not used it, so that doesn't mean that you will lose the data. Whatever the data you set up here, defined everything, that will still stay intact. So don't worry about that. You can export this file. Basically, I will show you later. Once you create everything, you can export it as XML zip file. So later, if you buy that another version, another trial or something, you can import it again. So use the same same test cases, so you don't lose any data. So that's possible either way. But if you are talking about the license and everything, that completely depends on your company. That I cannot speak for, right? So your company is ready to purchase. You're good. Canvas
And
is
if
you're
I
still
have one
good.
more question, Sangam. If
Uh-huh.
we are located at different places, suppose my team lead is in some different country and I am suppose working from India. Now, if my team lead says कि we are 5 people in the team and 5 people will suppose 1 to 5 test cases first person will be doing, then 6 to 12 other person will be doing. So the team lead has distributed these test cases among ourselves. Now,
Mm.
each of us will, she will send us that project. So each of us will open different projects on our machine,
Mm.
and then we will execute those test cases, and then each of us will send our project version to her, or we will merge that in one and then we'll send. So this is the way we need to do, right?
You mean to say you are sharing the projects among different team members?
Because she wants to see like what
Mm-hmm.
we have, what all things we have tried, and so she is in suppose US, and we are all working from India. So if she wants to see what all we did, so each of us has to create our own project, and then at the end of the day, we have to merge it again and send her back. Is that the way, or is there
Merging
any
is
other
not
way?
possible. If you are asking, like, I didn't get your question completely, but I think you are asking about the reusing the same project. So when you create your project here and simply export it, so that it will create zip file or XML file, right? So then what you do
Yeah,
for
but if we have multiple people, if we have 10 people, she has created 30 test cases, and she has distributed 30
oh,
test cases
okay, yeah,
among ourselves.
you can
So
basically
five, I
club.
will do five, other person will do five, third person will do. Now at the end of the day, we have to merge all those test cases because we all are working on different machines. So we have different SoapUI instance. So each one of us will have their different instances of projects. So how will we merge it and send it to her, and how can she have
You
a
mean
look?
merging in the sense defining the project, merging the definitions of the project or the executions of the project?
Execution of the project.
Executions you can merge. Okay,
Yes.
that's easy.
So, for example, she has created one project and she
Hmm.
has suppose created 10 test cases or 50 test cases for us, and
Hmm.
she said that you distribute among yourselves and
Okay.
execute it, and I want to see the execution
Hmm. Hmm, hmm.
in
Okay.
SoapUI. In
Okay.
SoapUI. She
Okay.
wants to
So
see that executed
basically,
test cases in SoapUI. But we all have executed those test cases on different machines,
uh,
dividing those test cases among ourselves. So how
uh,
will we send it to her at
okay.
the end
So
of the day?
okay, let me understand your question again. So you are saying your test lead will ask one person to test one
Consolidate. Yeah.
one part of web service and other person to execute another part of web service. So basically 10 people execute the same web service over different sets of data, or different web services over different sets of data, let's say. Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay, so then everybody runs a data driven testing and everybody ultimately will have this data sync. This is the output file, right?
No, it's not data-driven testing. It's normal testing all of us are doing.
No, normal testing in the sense you can always provide these details, take the screenshots and everything, right? That's easy.
Screenshots.
No, the difficult part is how do you match this data. For example, one person fetches okay, I'll tell you different scenarios for this. For example, one person runs this web service with some 10 sets of data, and another person runs with another 10 sets of data, and you have to basically merge. So all you have to do is open this data sync, and finally you have 10 rows here. Just put the other 10 rows here and just club everything into one Excel spreadsheet and send it. That is a consolidated results.
Okay.
So that is one way. Or if you are running the different web services, just merge with the same. Ultimately, you are playing with, you are providing the results in the Excel spreadsheet, right? So that is doable completely. What I'm This is easy. What I was thinking was you create the defining projects is also easy if you are just exporting this as one XML file. So finally you put every XML into one project, so basically clubbing, merging all these XMLs into one project. That is at the definition level also you can do, at the execution level also you can do. So execution level it's easy, very easy. So simply you take this, dump these all values into single spreadsheet. That I'll show later. So that's easy.
You know what, Sangam, actually we were not working with data systems because we didn't have Pro version. So what our test lead, she was in US, what she used to do, she used to create test, different test cases with different sets of data. So she was creating different test cases for different combinations. Suppose for range 0 to 50 or 50 to 25, she was creating different test cases. Now she was sending it to us in India for execution. Now suppose we are 3 people. So we distribute those test cases among ourselves. So 15 test cases we are doing, okay? For the test cases she has sent us. Now we 3 will have our own SoapUI instance of execution. So how do we, I have one project, another person has other project, third person has other project. So we all have to create our own folders and tell her that this is my execution, this is this one's execution, and that folder is for this one's execution.
Right.
She has to go and look over each project.
So let me ask you this question, Prachi. So your folder will have what kind of execution details? Like is screenshots or is the complete response files?
It will be a project. It will be my project. It's my project.
Okay, so basically you are running the SoapUI, not Pro, and exporting with the results, right?
Yeah. She's sending us a project with all test cases. Now we need to execute it. So
Right.
I have
So
my 1 to 5 test cases executed. So I'll save that project in one folder. The other person has 6 to 10 test cases which he has executed. He'll save it in another folder. So this was the way we were doing it. So that was tedious, right?
So yeah, that is tedious. I don't recommend that way. If you had to do it that way, you use it the Pro version. This is the best bet. You can suggest to your test lead going forward. So use this once you know the procedure and everything. So you can suggest, okay, give a presentation. Oh, this is workable. Instead of doing it with SoapUI, let us use the ReadyAPI. So, but if you're whatever you're doing right now, you can save the projects, and once she has one result from you and another result from other person, she can actually input all those projects as a packet project. So that will dump everything into one single project. So that's doable from her side. But for this particular task, I'll still do not recommend the SoapUI for that one. I recommend using the SoapUI Pro only. So this is where it basically it's like you're wasting like lot of man hours there if you're doing with multiple sets of data. So even with data driven testing, if there are 5 persons, for example, say let us how many web service are they set up, I don't know, but if there are like 100 web services and each web service must run on like 30 sets of data, and if there are 10 persons, so each one will take 10 web services, and they will run each web service with over 10 sets of data. Still it is a lot of task. Defining the test first is quite a bit of task, and then executing and providing the results, and then once you send all these details, she has to consolidate everything, and she has to again go through this. So she can do one thing. She can ask you to provide just the test summary results, just what point everything failed, what point everything passed. So I'll show you how to prepare that test results for the web service testing in the Excel spreadsheet. So ultimately you have to send the test lead that Excel spreadsheet with the results, not the total results from the web the test SoapUI Pro or SoapUI, because it will be cumbersome for her. So you have to analyze the responses. You ultimately just prepare nicely that pass and fail. That's it, nothing else. And if it is fail, what is the exact failure message in the response you are getting? That is in the description column you can provide. I'll show you the template. I'm not getting the template yet. So what you do is you will pass this to every tester. Everybody will fill these details in the spreadsheet. If they have like same shared location, server location, you just put the spreadsheet over there. So finally the test lead will take a look at that spreadsheet. So that will be easier for him or her. So anyway, we'll just look at the procedure. The procedure wise, we are still not yet done. Where we are right now?
Property transfer.
Property transfer. Okay. So let me continue. This procedure, once you understand, it's not easy. You have to practice. Then you will get more doubts. Then you have to practice with the resolve doubts and so on. Okay, this is stuck. Okay. All right. So property transfer. So what we'll do in the property transfer, data source. Okay, so data source, I forgot to put what column you are fetching the data from, right? That is important. Okay, let me. Okay, so I did not forget zip. So basically this zip is the column. So this column is zip, but this is from the grid, right? So but we will see the file again. The data will be coming from the file. How do we do that? I'll show it later. So then go to property transfer. So request data sync property transfer. So what is the property transfer? The order of the transfer elements from the data source must exactly match the order of the header elements in the data source file. Here this order does not matter, but you have to exactly sync. You have to exactly show what goes where. So let us see. So here the source and the target means the sync, and which property of the source goes to which property means column. For example, if you are dealing with the Excel spreadsheet or file or CSV file, still you have the columns. Property means column name from the header, simple. And you can provide XPath, or you can provide XPath is simply useful when you are dealing with multiple elements of the same name. For example, here you have description for this, and again you have description, sunny, partly cloudy, blah blah blah. So exactly you have to provide this particular element has XPath, just like in automation. Say if in developers code every element has a XPath, right? What is a XPath? What is the full form of XPath? Anybody? It is the unique path to an XML element. What is XML? Extensible markup language path. That's the full form of XPath. So this we are dealing with XMLs, right? In the XML, this is an element, right? This particular element has a unique path. That is what is called the XPath. So this is okay. This is understandable in the XML language. But why you are using XPath in the Selenium? This is for Prachi. This question. Remember, we have used CSS selector path and XPath, right? CSS selector is okay because cascading style sheet path is understandable, because most of the elements use cascading style. Most of them, I mean to say not all. Most of the elements use cascading style sheet paths. But we are also using XPath for identifying the elements in Selenium. Like this.
Because it's a unique part, right? That's it. For a
Yeah,
particular element, it's a unique part.
Right. What is the difference between that? Why we are using XPath? For example, here, right, I want to copy XPath. So simply copy XPath. Why it is showing XPath here? There is no XML. XPath by definition means XML path, extensible markup language path, right? CS path is applicable for the normal code. So that simply it means that in here also you are using XML. Basically, in the 3-tier architecture, XML is part of the architecture, right? There is a middleware. XML is in the communication. You always multiple systems communicate with each other in terms of XMLs and XMLs only. They cannot communicate with the HTMLs. HTML is only for the display purpose, I told you. So implicitly the XML path is still there. So every element is still part of the XML. All you are showing this web page is the HTML version of it. HTML displays it. But this is basically coming from the XML. Everything right now. unless it is a 2-tier architecture. So in 3-tier and more n-tier architecture, everything is coming from the XML. Hence, you can always find an X path for each element. This is the biggest advantage. Even though the CSS path does not exist for any element in the web page, you can always find X path. That means it's 100% doable. Every element has a unique X path. So that's for that one. So coming back to this, since this is the direct XML, obviously it has X path. That means here, how do you distinguish between this weather ID and this weather ID? They both are same name, right? Both have same name, even the hierarchy may be different. So the only way to distinguish between these two is via XPath. So that's the reason we also input the XPath. So I'll show you that later. Okay, so coming to this, you understood, right? Are you following, or are you like going bouncing off or something? Let me know. Prachi, I think I know you are getting. How about you, Somo?
I'm not 100% following, but
That's okay. I'm not expecting you to follow this portion, the portion I explained before, right? That is for the automation purpose. I explained that. But as far as this XML is concerned, just remember that each element in the XML will have a XPath. So using this XPath, we are going to provide the XPath. So what is the significance of this XPath? Because if you want to output this weather ID and this weather ID, or whatever weather ID which has 3 names are similar to your data sync output, so all we have to know is XPath. So simply just remember that part. So for now it's good. Okay, so we'll proceed with property transfer. Okay, source, I don't is it visible, or should I zoom in? Okay, I'm just zooming in. So in the source, you provide the source test request. Basically the source is test request. I'll tell you how. And the property is response, and the target is always data sync, because that's what you're going to put all this, dump the data into data sync, and what property column it is going to go, so that you have to define. Okay, now simply go here. So select so the property must have the elements for all the elements of the data source and data sync. So data source has zip. So first you provide the zip. It's not mandatory, but it's advisable. Okay, as soon as I added one transfer, automatically the source, target, property, everything is enabled. So before it was disabled. Okay, so first we'll add these transfers, then define the transfers. Okay, so then what you have to add? You have to add all the properties in the data sync to the property transfer. So st, ct, dth. The name can be different. Remember, just the order matters. The names doesn't matter. You can put city over here. Doesn't matter. This is daytime I. Let's call it. Okay, for the timing, this is okay. If you want to add, if you want to show the insignificance of XPath, I must also add one of these. Let's see. Let's add weather ID and description. So for this weather ID, this is the description. So for this weather ID, this is the description. So we have to go for the combo. Weather ID and description go together, and the date also go together, but because at this date timestamp the weather ID is this one, so weather ID simply means this one. So it means they have set up different weather IDs. Weather ID 1 means it's cloudy, weather ID 2 means partly cloudy. Basically this is the same. So in the database, weather ID 2 means partly cloudy. So however we can take both, or 3, doesn't matter. So let's add, so whatever you want to add to property transfer, you should have already added to the data sync. So that's why just make this change. Let's call it ID, WID. This is the simplest data driven testing we are doing, because the request XML has just one input, zip code, that's it. So if you understand this, you can understand the most complicated ones. So every time it asks me to save everything, so that is one disadvantage with this one. Okay, so right now we are going back to property transfer and adding the weather ID. You can put any name here.
The name should be same as in data link, huh?
No, not necessarily. That's what I'll do. Name can be anything. Only order matters. Order also doesn't matter. But you have to define which this weather ID goes from which to which. That's what matters. I will show you how. So what we are going to define over here matters. The names, you can put weather ID here, zip here, doesn't matter. But we are just maintaining the order just for the sake of like simplicity. Later on, if you want to refer to this, it will be easier. Otherwise, you will be searching for where is what. So just for that purpose, your convenience, you are maintaining order, that's it. Otherwise, it's not even required. So weather description, you can say weather description, you can say this, you can put whatever you want. But if you put some other name, you don't remember, right? So just make sure the naming convention is according to your understanding, so that you have to understand basically, not others. Okay, so now we have added. So come back to zip code. So what is the zip code? What is it an input or is it an output? Input, right? Okay. So input also you want to put into data sync. That means for the zip code, this is the weather data. So you want to show that to the output also. That's better. Or you can do it manually later. So let us do it that one. So this is coming from the SOAP request, right? Where it is going? This let me see. Okay. Okay, this is little confusing. Just remember that for the input, for the data source, property transfer is little bit different. For the data sync, the property transfers are little bit different. Just you have to understand the difference there. Otherwise, it might confuse you later. So I'll explain you clearly. Select the source as data source and property as this zip code here, and select the target as data sync. Always the target remains the data sync for everything, and property is where this is going to. All right. So for that purpose, data sync must also have zip code. So just add the zip code here. You know what I'm talking about. This is like what you see output. So what I'm trying to show to my test manager is the zip code is this one. For this zip code, this is the state, this is the city, this is the daytime high temperature, weather ID, and weather description nicely. So they know input and output, everything in the data sync. So just if you have to put this one in the beginning, just use the upper row. So I'm just bringing the zip code in the top of the everything. So this will look nice. Okay, now data source loop. Okay, not data source loop yet. The property transfer. Okay, zip code, state, city. Okay, perfect. Now where is this zip code is coming from? Data source. Select the data source, and property is zip. Obviously there is no XPath required because zip is unique. This zip is unique. You don't get confused. You only define the XPath when you have the same name used multiple times. So just remember. So for this zip path, since it's already unique, there is no other zip in the XML input request XML. Don't have to define the XPath. Okay. Now the target is always you are putting it to data sync. Data sync is your output. Data source is your input. Just remember that. Now where it is going to? Same thing. Property is zip. So the small zip, remember this small zip is your property in the data sync. Capital zip is your property in the data source. So that's why I just give the different name so that you know. But otherwise you don't have to worry. The drop down will mention everything, so you don't have to remember everything. So for this also you don't have to give the XPath. That is done. That is for input. Okay. So do not worry. I mentioned everything. Just describe everything clearly with the screenshot. So if you get any doubt later, you will always come back to this. Now that is for the property transfer of the data source. Now first, since I first say add source and target to the property transfer, so okay, first since I did it with did it for the data sync, so I had to do this first. Doesn't matter, you can do it later also. Okay, now what you have to do, you have to define state. Now for state, the state is coming from test request. Basically, why we are calling this test request, this is called request, this is called the response, but in terms of SoapUI tool terminology, the whole thing is called the test request. Whole thing is called the test request, and this is the request part of the test request, and this is the response part of the test request. You just have to remember, little bit confusing, but that's how the tool is. Okay, so here you select the source as test request, but the property is response. You know what I'm saying? State. Where is the state coming from? Coming from the response. What is the response? Response part of the test request. SOAP request, you mean to say. So source is SOAP request and property is response, right? Okay, do you need to define the XPath for the state? Do you find multiple states here? Do you have multiple states over there? Still you have to define the XPath. I'll tell you why. Don't worry. Okay, there are multiple path languages: XPath, XCoherent, JSON path. So normally we use XPath. It's not okay. Let's define the target also. So target, where you're dumping everything, you're dumping into data sync, because this is where everything goes to. So it fetches the source state for the first data, and where it fetches from? It fetches from the response part of this. Here the state is NC, and finally it puts into the data sync. Where to put in the data sync? I wanted to put into the state part of the data sync. So state is already defined with the data sync. So basically in your Excel spreadsheet or flat file, you will be seeing these columns as a header or something. Okay. So XPath is not enabled, so that means that you don't have to use XPath here. So move on to next one. Then city, same thing. So city is also coming from SOAP request. Which part of the SOAP request? Response, not the request part. Request part is zip, response part is others, city and everything. Okay, so here XPath is not coming somehow. Let us see about that later. Data sync, state, city. Somehow they're not coming. Okay, let's see what happens. Daytime high.
So basically for all the response, all the fields will be the same.
What is it? What is it, Soma?
For all the responses, the drop down will be the same.
Yeah, for not really. For request zip code, the drop downs are different. This is coming from the data source.
Yeah,
directly.
for request
It is different. Yeah, if you have multiple elements in the request, so apply the same technique for all zip or whatever. If you might enter multiple inputs also. For this here, there is only one set of input, and for response, similar. So everything goes similar. Only thing you change is the property here. Property will be differing. So for city, the property is city. For the daytime high, DTH, and weather ID. Okay, weather ID we'll see it later. Okay, for the time being, it will be more complicated. So let's deal with daytime high. Yeah, daytime high. So if I remove this obviously you have to remove, otherwise it will find for the definition. It won't find, then it will fail the test. So just make sure the whatever elements are there in the data sync must already be there in the property transfer. That means that if you are expecting these elements to be filled with proper values from the response in the data sync, that means they must be already defined in the property transfer. So just make sure that one point. Okay, so one last step, what is the data source loop? That means we have defined everything for the one record, that means, but we have to loop in for multiple records. So how to do that? So we'll come to that. Property transfer is over. Okay, one more page, let us read. I'll just read out these bullet points so that we don't miss anything. Add transfer element for the data sync. Select the source as SOAP request, add property as a response, select the target as data sync, and property as h1. That means the column name, your column name. Then also do the same for the rest of the columns, such as blah blah blah. How many columns are there in your, depends on that one. For all data sync columns, change 1 2 3 for the multiple x id. Okay, this is what I was talking. So basically this is from the x path. We haven't done that. Okay, we would normally, we are seeing this example without x path, so do not worry, I'll go for this step later. Response string blah 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 blah, blah. Okay, for data source element and no need to select the string. Okay, so finally data source loop, data source step as data source. This is always data source. Target step is always request SOAP message. So whatever SOAP message you have, same thing. So why is it so? Can anybody explain why we are selecting data source step as data source, target step as response, the request? This is stuck. Okay, it's not going, so that's why you can still see the drop down. Okay, so the reason is, one set of data is executed successfully, next time it has to go to data source, obviously, right, and fetch the values from the data source. That means zip codes, that is a XLR flat file. Then data step will be, it will be finally dump the request step, target step. So all these requests, the zip codes will be going where? They are going to the SOAP message, SOAP request. They are putting over here. That's what the data loop is coming into picture. That's where. So otherwise you don't have to loop in for the response. That is response part. All the values taken from the response, that part is taken care by the, which one? Property transfer, not the loop. So property transfer automatically took care of that one. So the data source loop, just have to loop for the input and put the input values from the flat file or Excel spreadsheet to the here to the request. That's it. Okay, just click on OK. It's just staying over here, it's not refreshing. The all tooltips are not refreshing, it's stuck. Okay, save it. Okay, so that was the last step. So we just go ahead and run it right now. Okay, just before that, just make sure that the steps are in the following order. First, data source, SOAP request, property transfer, data sync, and data source loop. Already we did that, but just double check. Data source for the SOAP request, property transfer, data sync, and data source loop. Perfect. Okay, now we have to execute. Definition part is over. Now we are going to execute it. Double click on the test case. Are we missing anything else? Yes, we haven't created the file for the data source, right? Data sync is there, data sync is empty. Okay, one more thing, you don't have to create data sync. If it is not created already, it will create the file automatically. So this is not mandatory. What the mandatory step is, you must create the data source, because unless and until data source is not there, it won't find the data, right? So data source must be okay. In this case you don't need, I just forgot, In this case, we are not taking the data from the flat file. Remember, we are taking the data from the grid. Okay, so no worries. We are ready for the execution. I'll show you this part later, how to create a data source file and take it, which is the most idealistic way. This is the you can say it's like fundamental way of running the data driven testing. Okay, just go to test case. Now we are going to run the test case, not the test step. You cannot run the test step. You run the whole test case, which will run these steps in the same order. So just double click on it and you will find the run the test case button here, right? Green button. Just click on it. Okay, test case is finished. 5 sets of data or whatever we provided. The green color means it's all the 5 sets are passed successfully. Red, if it gives a red color, that means some of the test cases have failed. That means your definition is wrong. This doesn't mean that your test cases have passed. You know what I'm saying? For example, this again is subject to the requirement. For example, if you provide the wrong zip code, it must provide the wrong response. It simply running, that means the definition is passed. However, you have to go and look into each response. Where do you look? Simply go to the response file. Data sync. So see, before it was 0 bytes, right now it is 33 bytes, kilobytes. So that means it is filled with the data. Let us open and see. So basically it provided all the responses. That means it ran for one zip code and it took the response, it dumped it in here, and it took one more zip code from the grid, not from the file, from the grid here. So second step, it ran for this zip code, and whatever the response it got back, it just dumped over, appended. That's what we say. That's what we told the tool. Where did we tell the tool? The append in the okay, so we forgot to put append to existing file. So however it worked fine. Looks like it ran. So here you can see the whole data log. This is the zip code request, states, country. So what it did was it dumped the whole XML instead of just the state. I just wanted the state, which is more reader friendly, user friendly. So we will see how to modify that one. So however it worked, like you can say 50% it did, 50% job. The whole responses were dumped every time. Okay, so this we are going there. You can delete if you want to, or you can rename it so that you can keep this record for later. Let's call it 1. Okay, so now we'll go back. So just make sure that you check this append to the existing file. That's okay, I'll show you how the response should be. It should not be like this. We'll correct it. Okay, so once you execute, the target file, data sync file should look like this, comma separated values. So this is where your zip code should come, city, state with comma separated. Once you get these files, you can easily convert it to Excel spreadsheet. That's not a big deal, but you have to get this file in this format only, not the it basically what it did, it just instead of just dumping the state value, it dumped the whole XML here. That was the thing which it did before. So we are going to correct it. Let's go back. So where it was lacking, some kind of setting was lacking here. In the property transfer, we missed something. Okay, so this is where we missed. See, it just dumped the whole response here. However, it dumped the correct zip code. Zip code is correctly dumped. The only response zip codes are dumped correctly. This is your data sync, whereas the response elements are not dumped correctly. Instead, it dumped whole tag from the XML. Okay, let us see about that. Alright, okay, source, this one response. Okay, so right now the XPath is enabled. Let's see. City could not be found in whether. Okay, that was actual response for this. Zip is data source, property zip. Okay, it's going to zip. It's coming from the source and coming from the response part of the source. That's right. And going to data sync state. So are we not telling where it is coming from? That's where it is missing, right? So basically that should come from somewhere here, only if the response is correct. So let's see, the zip code is correct as far as my 27707, that's the correct zip code. Is it not taking the zip code properly? Okay, let us use the file to check whether it's not doing it correctly. So simply use the file. In this case what I'm doing is just creating the file for that, like I told you. So here data source file is already created, so we are going to provide zip codes. So let's use 2 zip codes for the timing.
What happens to the grid? It's not working to the grid?
Yeah, grid maybe may not be working, but like I told you, grid is only for the initial purpose. Ultimately you have to do this one only, the files. Maintain the files for data source and data sync. That's better. So let me see if this is working or not. Okay, so data source is this. Prim values remove, quote values remove. Save everything. Okay. Data source is coming from the file now. Alright, and let's just run this data source. If you want to just check the data sources correctly, the SoapUI tool is able to read the data source or not. You can just run the data source directly, not the test case. So you just click on this. Specify max number of rows 10. So if it has 100 rows, you can put 100 rows. But since we only provided 2 rows, that's fine. 10 rows. See, the 2 rows are correctly reading. That means it's able to read the file. That's fine. Now this is parameterized with the zip code from the data source, so which is already done correctly. And data sync, so let me run this data sync also. However, data sync is not properly, it's dumping the whole XML. This is the only part we have to take care of. We don't want the whole XMLs, do we? We just want the values, just the city, street, and all this. Okay, so property transfer, something we are missing in the property transfer, that's for sure. Already streets, fail transfer on error. Okay, so that means if some step is failed, right, so it won't transfer. So normally check that everything looks okay. Okay, so for that I have already imported one of my previous projects, whole test case, test suite. Let us see. Let us compare to that one. Okay, So for example, I'll take this particular case. So let us see, this won't work, but at least for the setting purpose I am seeing. So the whole data source is fine. That's what we did. Test request, just fetching the request. Okay, response won't be fetched, so that's fine. Let us see the data sync. Okay, data sync will have all these elements which we want to dump to, and everything looks okay. txt file, data source.
Sangam,
Yes.
you see it, then let's continue next class then.
Why you have some work now?
No, how much
No, it's
time will
almost.
it take then?
I know. It's almost over. If I do this, it's almost complete. So later you can just practice. Then we can start.
Okay.
So what I'm planning to is, if Prachi has time, we can continue with the other Selenium. We have other. I don't know if you're tired, we can continue later. That's fine. But since this only takes some time, if you cannot figure out, I'll figure out later. I don't want to keep you waiting. But can you wait for like 15 more minutes?
Okay.
Do you have some work? You are going out or something?
Yeah. But
Okay.
I can wait 15 minutes.
Okay. Some setting is missed. Data source enrollment ID. And data sync TR ID. Okay, so that's for the request. For the response, yeah. So basically we have to create this string, the XPath string for each element. That's what it is missed. For each response, see, we couldn't create. Okay, so the setting is perfect. Source is a request, and response is a property, and target is data sync. This is okay. So only thing that is missed is this one. Okay, so I can simply copy this most of the time. So if it is not readily available, but I don't want to do this. Simply what you do is click on this export. Response must be, so this will tell the tool that response must be taken from, do not take the whole XML, but take only the specific value. For example, person ID. So I am telling take it from the getHix response and only take the person ID. Which person ID? If there are multiple person IDs, just take the first person ID. So that's what I'm saying. If there is a second, third person IDs, put it into other one. So this is what I need it. Somebody dropped the call. Who is it? I think he Somo got dropped, right? Yeah, I know. I think he is too tired to. Probably is tired. Let me add him. Probably is dropped accidentally.
Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message system. 316403337 is not available.
Okay.
At the tone, please record your message. When you have finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
Okay, so let us continue. Once he comes back, I can explain later. So you got right. What we are missing here? We are missing this way to put what XML. So basically what we did not tell the tool to do is, we did not tell take this particular element, for example this one city, from here and put it into that particular. Instead it is taking the whole XML and putting into the particular column of the data sync. So we have to specifically tell it. So that's what I'm trying to figure out.
If you are satisfied with your message, press 1 to listen to your message. Press 2 to erase and re-record. Press 3 to continue recording where you left off. Press 4.
Hey Sumo, did you drop the
Are
call
you still
accidentally?
there? If you are satisfied with your message, press 1 to
Okay,
listen to your
join.
message. Press 2 to erase and re-record. Press 3 to continue recording where you left off. Press 4.
Hey Sumo, this is Sangam. Did you
Are you
drop
still
the call?
there? If you are satisfied with your message, press 1 to listen to your message. Press
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's dropped. Probably there's some work. Okay, let him go. Let us continue. Okay, so here the problem is it is not okay. Okay, let me copy this. Let us do it manually. But don't worry. So most of the time it should work. Where we have to go to? We have to go to our property transfer here. That was my previous project file. So let me go here. Okay, so I'm going to erase this, clear the console, right? Property transfer is coming like this. Okay, I need the space like this. Okay, let me copy. Let's see. WebService custom queue. Okay, this basically the whole declaration part is totally different for this web service. That's what I was trying to do. It says false. Okay. I think I have to run at least one time. Let me erase this. So why we are getting a city could not be found. Otherwise, basically we have to find the at least it will run for the first zip code and it will fetch the response properly. And in the response, I would have to select the exact element. So that's what will generate the string, export expression. So here it is showing this city could not be found. Okay, data source has 27707. That's the correct city. Let's run it manually. Yeah, that's the correct city. Let's do it for one. Data source. Okay, so always start with data source. Just run it, just to read it. Is it reading properly or not? So specify maximum number of. So okay, always put 0 here. So 0 means it doesn't matter if you have 1000 records in the data source, it will still read all those. So 0, and it is reading this. And let us run this one time to see if it is able to run. Yeah, this is not running for one time. That is the reason it's not running for the multiple. So obviously it has to run for one. Okay, so zip, this is correctly do the correct string for the parameterization. Data source hash zip. Okay. Now I got it. I think this is looking for the column here. Since we didn't provide the header, so it couldn't find the zip. So let's run it now. If it runs one time, you can easily make it run for the zip. So let's start from the data source. So all you have to make sure that the zip doesn't appear here. Zip should be taken as a string. So zip is coming, so something need to be done here. No, I don't think this is required, right? This first column itself tells zip. So that you won't get the zip. That's not the input. Input is simply this one. This is coming from here. This is okay. Data sources file. This is okay. This string is appears to be wrong. Let us check this string format in this. So okay, so one thing you can do, if it is running properly or not, simply go to from. Okay, so let me copy this somewhere. So this is the example. I'll give you the syntax. So let us use the exact value here. Let's see. Okay, so can we run this? No, this is disabled. 27707. Data source $sign data source hash zip. Okay, that looks perfect. Okay, obviously it won't run. Stop this. Okay, get data from data source. Yes. Save all projects. Alright, let's run this one time just in case. So here you can see on the bottom the test case results. Current row 1, there is only one row, right? So that is paused. Let us go and check the test data sync. Yeah, the whole XML is dumped. See, this is the first column, zip, and then afterwards it's just putting comma, and in the space, in the place of city, it's dumping the whole XML. So if you see this, is it fetching the correct result at least? No, right? Because everywhere it is false. For could not found in the weather data. City could not be found in our weather data. That is the problem. But singularly it is running here. It is fetching the detail. Maybe I think we need to change the example. Example is wrong. Here it is city found, whereas it is running here. City not found is shown. City could not be found. Okay. Wrong example. Oh yes, here it is properly showing. Is data sync with existing values. Okay. See here the showing this XML, it's dumping the full XML. Let me see. Loads property values from external file. Saves current property values to file. Okay, that's fine. Everything is correct. So only that is missing is the property transfer. Yes, property transfer. City font. Yeah, now it is coming. See. Okay, so in the city state we will use this, so automatically it will create the string. Alright, so now come to city, do the same thing. State city is Durham and daytime high is this one, 78, right? Select this. Okay, so let's save this again. Hopefully this will run. This is the only thing that was missing. Come on. Go to test case and run it. Okay, so now it's finished. Let's check it out. Okay, so this time the XMLs are not dumped, but the response are also not. This data sync or this? Okay, I opened the data source, right? Seriously.
There is one data hyphen sync one.
Which one?
Sync
That's okay. I'm just renaming it so that it won't consider that file. So the data sync always must go to datasync.txt. So it will look for the file. If it is not created already, it will create one. So basically right now there is no file called datasync, right? So when I run the test case, it will create the file and then dump the values. So right now it created. See, the data sync file is created here, and when I open it, now it is coming. See, okay, that means the old file was still there, that's why it was still using the old file. See, the first column is zip code and the second column is state and city and the time high. So this is okay.
Where we need to copy the string from?
Okay, no, you don't copy. Okay, so you can create right inside the tool. I'll show you again. So all we were missing to do was that the property transfer. Let me explain this again. Zip code is directly coming from the data source, so you don't have to show the path. Data source, it's coming from which part of the data source? Zip. So directly the data zip code is coming from data source here. So let me go ahead and put some more zips. Let me use 19403. So one record it ran fine. So basically we have to make it run for 110 or 1000 records. So tell me some more zip codes, Prachin. One more at least.
08820.
08820.
10007.
The first one is
08820.
20.
Yeah.
Okay. Four data source elements, right? Okay. Data sync, obviously you can create, you can delete if it is already there, or just rename it. So if you basically keep the same thing, maybe it will append to the existing values, which will look wrong values. So just rename it.
I'm doing parallelly as you're doing, that's why I'm asking.
Oh really? Okay, is it working for you now? Is it worked for my
No, I didn't add that string. I missed that string.
Okay, let me go to that. So this part I am explaining, right? For the input data source, you don't have to add any string. So when you come to data sync elements, you select the source as request and response is the property, and it is going to target part is state. So for the target you don't have to generate any string. For the source you do have to. So how do you generate? Simply click on this XPath here. For this, are you getting this? For this to show the correct response, you must run this response at least one time, I guess. I don't think it's mandatory, but just run it one time so that it will show. Initially it didn't show, that was the reason. Okay, so here it will show this.
But where are you doing this? In data?
In the ready, do you see the XPath?
In property transfer you doing?
Yeah, in the property transfer. That is the important step. Property transfer.
Okay, in property transfer, you are clicking on the XPath near this symbol, bundle
Yeah.
symbol.
Select XPath. By default, XPath should be there, but if it is not selected, select XPath.
No, it's not. It's not selecting.
Okay, so click on this.
This is not highlighted. That this button.
Oh, really? That's what happened initially. So that's why we have to run this at least one time. Did you run the data source one time? Just run it one time.
I ran it once.
Okay, when you run, what should happen is it will prompt you how many rows you want to read. 0. You have to mention 0. That means all. Then it will read all the data and dump it over here. Just the data source. That means it's reading your data source file.
So you want me to run the whole test case, or you want me to run only property transfer?
No. First you run the data source. So just for a check, this is like a check. Is it able to read your data source first of all?
Okay, so I mentioned 0 and clicked on OK. I saw that 4 rows. Okay. Now after that?
Now come to the request.
Okay, I came to the request. Yeah.
Okay. Do you see this response? Correct response for the one set of data source element.
I have selected four inputs.
No, 4 inputs okay, but at least for the one input it should show the response properly. Otherwise, you will not be able to generate the string.
I see that the first one is no, it's not showing me the 27707 response is not showing me. It's showing me some other third row's response is showing me.
Okay, so is it showing this one property transfer like this? Are you able to click on this? Is it enabled? It's disabled here, right? But it should be enabled on the top source.
It's not enabled.
Okay, that is the reason why you're not able to generate the string. Okay, anyway, don't worry. I'll show it on your system also later. So let us run this for the 4 sets of data right now. Okay, so just make sure that there is no file called data sync, otherwise it will mess up. So come to date test case now. Let us see if it is able to append the second, third, fourth values correctly or not. Okay, so now it finished successfully. Just check that down. This is actually results. That means all the steps are passed. Step 1, data source. Step 2, request. Step 3, property transfer. So property transfer for what? Zip, state, city, datetime, and blah blah blah. Step 4, data sync. Okay, that means pass. Data source slope. Step 5, that is also okay. For the current row 1, so it will repeat the same thing for row 2, row 3, row 4. Rows from the data source. So basically there are 4 rows. So it will repeat all the steps for all the 4 rows. So that will be these many, 17 or something. So all the steps are passed. So this is basically a test results log, you can say. You can export this as is. Normally you can copy paste into your flat file and show it. But the actual response will be in the data sync. So data sync is here. Okay, right now it is coming correctly. This is the expected results. So the first, all you have to do is go ahead and put the header yourself, zip, state, state, comma, city, no spaces, just comma and that's it, city, high temperature, high temperature. So then once you do this, you can easily convert into Excel spreadsheet. I will show that later. So this is the basically CSV file. See, for the first zip code, what is the state, city and high temperature. Second zip code, PA Norristown 85. For the third, NJ Edison 50. Fourth, NY New York 70. So this is basically the expected response we have been looking for. So once you get this, how to convert this into Excel spreadsheet, I will show that. So right now the execution part is done successfully. So once it is successfully executed for 4 rows, you can even put 100 zip codes, 1000 zip codes, it will still work. That is the basic concept of data driven. If it works for 2, it will work for 2 million. Okay, click execute. That's done successfully. So finally your response will look like this. See, the only thing you have to do manually is you have to put the header manually. That is the only drawback with this tool. Otherwise that's just a 1 or 5 seconds job. That's no problem. Now how do you modify this CSV file to this thing? Sometimes it gives some extras commas. That means if it is not able to find any element, then provides commas. So simply remove those, replace the following XML tag, and if it is not able to find any XML, any tag in the XML itself, it will directly dump the whole error message. So for that thing, you have to replace this error message. More or less the error message will be similar in a given data sync file. So simply replace this, find and replace will erase all every error message completely. So that one thing you have to take care of. Then how do you convert this CSV file into Excel file finally? So you need to provide the output like this. This is what they are expecting, right? So that is simple. I'll show you. So similarly, just come to data sync. This is the data sync. So right now it is in the TXT format, right? So simply, okay, for that you need to show the you need to show the extensions. Just make sure you may show the extensions. Go to view and display hide extension for the known file types. Just make sure that you uncheck it so that it will show the extensions. So why I am doing this? Because I want to change TXT to CSV, because only from CSV you can convert it to Excel directly, not from the TXT. So simply, if you want to keep this as is, just copy and paste it here, and I'm going to change its extension from TXT to CSV. So click on OK. So as soon as you change CSV, it shows the icon like this. That means you can open it with Excel directly. So let me double click on open it. See, the CSV file directly opens. All it does is it replaces commas with the, it takes wherever it finds commas, it will put in the different cells. So now since you have this, you simply save it as whatever format you want to. You don't again go back to CSV file. That means you simply save as I want to save it as either XLSX or XLS. So this is your sharing purpose now. So I'm going to save it as data sync dot. It is going to replace. That's fine. So now you can simply just format it. Just bold the the header files, header elements, and just nicely format it. That's later, you know. So but procedure wise, this is it. So overall, once you get these files, you can do whatever you want to. And if you already know some macros, how to fetch what values and put nicely. So if you can write macros, if you are already aware of macro programming, then you can also do. Automatically it will fetch only the some values, and basically that is useful for reconciliation purpose. That means take these values. If you have another spreadsheet, you want to take some columns from this one, some columns from that one. So basically that is achievable by writing some macro programming. So I used to have some I am not good at writing macro programs, so some other resource wrote the macro programming for me, so I just used to use that and make some modifications. I can understand the existing program but not write from the scratch. So that was it. And assertions we will see later, since today is just drop the call, right? So what I'll do is I will explain the overall process, successful process again, so that he can understand it again. And then we'll one more class is left for this assertions, and once that is done, the SoapUI pretty much is over. You have to just practice with different examples. That will give you good practice. And afterwards we'll take JMeter. That's more or less 1 or 2 classes. And then we have one more, that Selenium class, right? Selenium, there are more concepts, but majorly that is what is left. The Apache API POI package, reading the Microsoft documents.
So, can you connect to my machine, Sangam?
Yeah, I will connect to your machine. Let's correct you. Yeah.
My password, I'll tell you.
Okay, so why don't you disconnect from my machine there, because otherwise it will show that infinite loop.
Yeah, I disconnected.
Okay.
My password is 5008.
Okay, I can see your screen. Okay, here this is disabled, right? That is the reason. Initially it was disabled. That's why we are struggling so much. So let's come from the beginning. Data source 0. Okay, it is reading all the data source elements. Now come here. Okay, so that means you are getting the response correctly. That means.
But only one is showing.
One, yeah, that's true. Here it will only show one. Otherwise, there is no. But
like, it is showing for the third row.
It will show the last row basically. Maybe if you aborted the execution, whatever the last row which was successfully executed, it will show that, because it will stop. Let us go to property transfer. Okay, so this is okay. Data sync. Append to the, okay, this is perfect. Okay, only thing is here it is dumping the whole XML. This is what the anomaly was we got. So I corrected this one. Let us correct here. Data source loop, data source and request. This is perfect. Everything's perfect except for the property transfer. If you run the data sync directly, it will show this. Still it is dumping the whole XMS. Now response, data sync. All right. Did you save in between? Okay, so this particular thing is disabled. Let me try and change.
We need to click on state and then we'll
For zip code, right? For zip code you don't need. Yeah. For state you need this.
It has come.
See, now it is come. So okay, for do not try to generate the string for export string for the data source element. You don't have to. So you simply select what you want from here, state. Now there is more thing to it. I didn't show. That's advanced string. So like for example, you have multiple elements like date. You have this, right, descriptions, multiple descriptions. So how to deal with those multiple, I'll tell you later maybe. So here just this is the basic. Once you learn basic, you can go to advanced. So now city, see. So did you get what I was talking about? For example, weather ID here. There is one more weather ID here. Okay. So here, if you want to deal with those, I think you simply select it. Did you provide? Okay. Let us see. Since I removed it, I couldn't. Let us see here. City, you select. So it simply tells that, okay, hey, this is the X path. That means you go to this get city forecast by zip code response SOAP message and look for this one. Look for the city. And one means first city, first occurrence of city. If you have multiple occurrence of city, you can say. So if you want to fetch the second occurrence of city, you can simply copy this and just replace by 2. So that's advanced. So right now, since only we have one city per one request, one response, that's fine. And daytime temperature. Okay, daytime temperature is down here. This zone. Yeah, this zone. So likewise, you can provide everything, but once you make it this work, you can make this work for all elements. So just make sure that you simply change it. So initially you are just stuck here, right? Zip code. That's why.
Maybe
okay.
Okay.
I think I did the same mistake. I just selected zip code and I was searching for why it is not getting enabled. That was a mistake. Okay. So now this. SOMO ke to
And when I was running that SKS and I found that there was only one result which was showing up, so I thought that maybe something is wrong.
Yeah, so let's hold on, it's stuck, right? Okay, can you operate now? It's I cannot control. Take control.
Weather ID and weather description. This is one, right? Weather description.
Yeah, you can select whatever you want to. Okay, now save it.
File.
Did you erase the old data sync file or rename it to something else? Okay, now this is the test log, so you can just refer to this. Everything is fine. Okay, now open the sync file. Perfect. So this is what you are looking for. So it also provided win IDs and descriptions.
So we'll have next class tomorrow.
Tomorrow is my first day, so let me see. I've been what time I will reach home, I don't know because so I'll let you know. So only the thing left is assertions, and of course I'll show you. Why don't you take another example from the same site, say different visitor, and do the same thing. Try to do that if that gives you a good practice.
Yeah, right? I'll do it.
Yeah, assertions and so when do you want to do that? Even I want to complete. I don't know the other thing. What is it called? Apache POS, Selenium.
See, I'm free. You can take any time.
Okay. Let's see that example. Let's take some break and today we'll see. We can at least see.
No, not today. Not today.
Not today. Okay.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay.
Tomorrow, day after, whatever, but not today. So from 2:30 we are having class.
Okay, fine. Okay. Yeah, I know. Everybody is excited. We started around 2 o'clock, right? Today, 3, 4, 5.
2:15 to between 2:15 to 2:30 we started.
Right. Okay, that guy Somo is he was too exhausted. Maybe he just dropped the call without telling.
See, for me it's a bit easy to grasp because I have worked somewhat on this, but for him he has not worked at all, so it's difficult for him to grasp all things together. No, so for continuous 2-3 hours it becomes too much.
Right. Yeah, he's basically. He's not. I was telling. He came like day before yesterday. He came here to our home we went for a dinner here in Pennsylvania. So I was telling him, why don't you stay? He's all the time he's sticking to manual testing. He's like experienced for 10 years. Since the beginning, he just stuck to the manual testing only. He's not even changing a little bit. So I suggest him, why don't you change, at least learn something SoapUI or automation. So finally he listened to the first class. Remember, he attended the first Selenium class.
Yeah.
Then he said no, I मुझसे नहीं होगा ये जावा कोडिंग सब. So मैं सोचा ठीक है, at least SoapUI ठीक रहेगा. So he said, he then thought I wanted to learn SoapUI and JMeter, that's fine. So then he attended. So maybe it's easy for me, it's just a procedural thing, there is no programming knowledge required here, it's fairly easy. So hopefully he has to basically practice. If he doesn't get a chance to work in his project, he doesn't get a chance to use this tool, again he'll forget. But don't worry, I'll provide steps, all the steps I have been documenting. So I'll provide the document to you. I'll share the document also, Prachi. So the PPT presentation.
Yeah, it will help me in the interview also, if in case I can say that I have worked on data driven testing.
Yeah, so you can basically
ask me the procedures.
You can basically just read out all those steps, so that will tell you, okay, this okay, pretty much you are well versed with the SoapUI Pro version. So that is one of the advantages.
Also, Sangam, you provide me an overview of what you are doing in that project itself or somewhere. What were you testing, so that I can create that same scenario and tell them.
Yeah. So what I can do is I can export that file and send you the zip file. Basically you can import that into your SoapUI Pro and see the structure definition, but you cannot run it because of the fact that you cannot, the whole URL is, it's non-workable outside environment. So you can simply use it. That's what I did. Remember, just before I went back to my project, saw the structure is fine or not. So that is for the reference. In case you make a mistake, you can always access the reference point. So I'll zip that and send it to you as well. Simply you can import.
Then in my words, I need to describe that project, right? What I was doing in that project. What I was actually testing.
That is also simple. Basically, ultimately everything comes down to WSDL. You get a WSDL and you import. That's what I started from. See, I'll show you. So basically there is nothing.
What were you testing actually? Enrollment. I could see that word enrollment.
Oh, enrollment ID is input. Just like, okay, so for example, a person goes to a website, healthcare website, he enrolls himself and his family. So a unique enrollment ID is generated. So that's a unique ID. So the web services part is, when you input the enrollment ID, it will fetch all his details, his first name, last name, date of birth, gender, his family members details and everything, his income, blah blah blah, everything. That is like very big web service. So that was his part. Input is just you input enrollment ID, it will fetch all his details. So that's
it. This was for health insurance, right?
Yeah, it's a health insurance related project. It doesn't matter what type of project, even if you are in energy sector, public sector, or financial sector, banking sector, same thing more or less. Everything comes down to WSDL. You get a WSDL, start creating a project out of WSDL, and everything that follows is documented here. You do the same thing. Add to test case, add test suite, add data source, data sync, property transfer, data source loop, blah blah blah, and define it, and finally run it, and just make sure that you don't forget to generate those strings, export strings, which we have, and then finally execution. Ultimately it will come to the this file, the text file, because why the text file is getting in. Text file is easy to play with, flat file. So the reason why it created
you were using enrollment ID as input, and what were you trying to take out as output in real term? What you were trying to take out in CSV format, the first name, last name, and something like that, or family details?
Here this is the output I was interested in, right? Enrollment ID, HIX ID is another health information exchange ID, that's a unique ID again. And person ID, for example, there are multiple persons in the household, for example 5 persons. Here 10 persons I am dealing with. This is the maximum a household can contain. 10 persons, let's say. For each person there is a unique person ID, it will fetch, and for each person there is a unique HIX ID, it will fetch. So again there is one more web service. If I input HIX ID, it will fetch all these demographic details, like first name, last name, date of birth, gender, blah blah blah, and all those. So the HIX ID was crucial input for the crucial parameter for that particular project. So this is what we are looking for, and the main significance of this data driven test for this was, normally in your project you can write a SQL, right? Everything is in the database. If you write a SQL and you put a where condition and where enrollment ID is equal to, if you run it, it should fetch all these, right? Select star from so and so, person table dot person ID 2 blah blah comma 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 where enrollment ID is equal to this one. That is easy, right? You don't have to do this. The problem with this, only we have to do web service data driven system, because this enrollment ID is coming from the different system, Hicks ID is coming from the different system. There are two different systems, not one. Systems, like we told, entire architecture, right? In the 3-tier architecture, we only have one middleware. But here, there are 2-3 middlewares, different. One is coming from the federal hub, one is coming from the state hub. Everybody has their own security purpose, and they have firewalls, and we couldn't run a SQL. It's not at all possible. So the only possible way is to run the data driven testing on the web services. So hence we had to figure out the whole this practice. You cannot get this particular thing on the YouTube, or you cannot get it on the internet anywhere. So only thing, since we have figured out, even if you go to SoapUI Tool, SoapUI website, they will show you the surface level things only, not in depth, how to actually do this, how to get the results accurately. So only when you figure out, it took a lot of time, and then finally we figured out. So, and once we ran this, they were happy, because once they saw the results, okay, they were happy because it's possible. Otherwise, with the SQL queries and everything, it couldn't have been possible. So in your project also, if it is possible with the SQL queries, they will do it. If it is, especially when it's different inputs and outputs especially are coming from different multiple systems which have their own services separately and their own firewalls, then it is impossible to run simple SQL or complex SQL just like that. So in that case, you have to create data driven web service testing setup like this and run it. So in your project also, you have to figure out, okay, so if this is not possible with the other, then you use this. Otherwise, you can always go with SQL. I am not saying it's not possible with SQL.
Okay, yeah, I got it.
So that is.
Sangam will close it for today.
Yeah. So hopefully tomorrow may not be possible. I'll let you know day after tomorrow or something. So we'll continue.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Okay. Bye.
Okay, Prachit. Yeah. Bye.